Imagine a fairy tale story about a young girl who goes to a cute land called Fairyland for a request they have to finish so they can get back to the human world. However, the girl is so bad at making requests that she gets stuck there for 27 years, becoming a monster who kills everyone in the worst ways just to get back home. That is the story of our protagonist, Gertrude. So, what happens when you unleash a psycho killer in a fairyland that she despises, where, according to their rules, they can't harm her? Let's find out. Our story begins with a girl named Gertrude, who had just one wish. She wanted to be taken out of her life and pulled into a wonderful world full of magic, laughter, and joy. One day, her wish really came true. She got pulled out of her childhood room, sucked through a portal, and transported to a magical place called Fairyland. This world was bright, colorful, full of candy, and strange-looking characters. But as soon as Gertrude arrived, her luck was really bad. When she fell in this world, she took a hard fall that broke her arm and was covered in bruises from the fall. She was hurting, but in this world, no matter how much pain she was in or how hurt she got, she didn't die like she would in the real world. She then meets a woman named Queen Claudia, the ruler of Fairyland. The queen introduces herself and says that she's happy Gertrude is her guest. She explains that there's a door that can take her back to her world, but she needs a key. To find it, she has to go on an adventure, which should take about a day by human time. Claudia introduces Gertrude to her guide in Fairyland, Larry, and gives her a map showing all the known lands in Fairyland. With everything she needs, her adventure begins. After that, the story cuts to 27 years later, starting with Gertrude arguing with Larry again on a flying ship about the place of the key. Despite all these years passing by, she is still trapped in the body of a cute girl. Gertrude curses Larry with words like, "Fluff you," because you can't curse in Fairyland. The moon says that the sweet little girl, who used to be full of hope and joy, has turned into a hateful, disgusting person. The little girl snaps angrily and says, "Fluff you, you know I'm hearing you, right?" The moon replies nonchalantly, "Yeah, I know." Gertrude threatens to shoot him, but the moon gets upset and says, "I'm the top storyteller in the Holy Storytellers Guild, and you've gotta show me some respect." Instead of responding, Gertrude loads a cannon on the flying ship and blasts the moon so hard that his head explodes, guts spilling everywhere, blood everywhere, and she just laughs. Gertrude calms down a bit, and Larry tells her she won't get away with it, with all the stars that witnessed her crime. So, she pulls out a machine gun and fires rounds into the living stars in the sky. The bullets tear through them, killing them instantly despite their screams, but Gertrude doesn't stop until she's done with the stars. Then, she decides to take a break and heads to a place called Las Fangas to gamble and have some fun. This all happens in Queen Claudia's palace. The queen goes out with her assistant and looks up at the sky. She sees stars falling and dying. One of the dying stars hits her in the face and falls to the ground, gasping her last breaths. The queen asks her, "Who did this to you?" The star, trembling, says, "It was Gertrude." Then she dies. The queen gets angry and yells, "Gertrude, I'm going to kill her." Her assistant interrupts and reminds her that the rules say she can't harm any guest in Fairyland, not even a single hair. The queen knows the rules but says she's found some clever ways around them. "I can't hurt her myself, but the rules don't say anything about whether a guest gets hurt. Someone could receive a nice reward for that." Then the queen talks to a hunter named Brode the Brutal and asks him to kill Gertrude elsewhere in Las Fangas, where Gertrude is running around laughing after robbing a casino, carrying bags full of cash. While being chased by the city police, a little man with a mushroom, using an electric frog, they finally catch her and take her to their leader, the Slug Lord, a gang leader who looks like a violent criminal shaped like a snail. We see a big tattoo on his chest that says, "Slug Life," instead of "Thug Life." Then he decides to tell her a riddle, and if she fails to solve it, she'll be sent to the dung mines or the grave pits. Gertrude is annoyed but says, "Go ahead, just tell us your riddle." The Slug Lord starts telling this super long, complicated riddle, all mixed up, about a bunch of nonsense she doesn't understand. At the end, Gertrude says she knows the answer. She asks him to come closer so she can whisper it in his ear. He starts inching closer to her slowly, and she suddenly grabs the chain around his neck with her teeth and starts choking him. The Slug Lord screams for help. The mushroom police show up, and he orders them to kill that stupid girl. The mushroom police attack her, but Gertrude goes crazy and explodes on them, attacking and eating them one by one. Their guts spill out of their bodies, and blood splatters everywhere. Then she runs and jumps out the window. There, she finds Larry waiting for her on top of a flying pig. Gertrude lands on the pig and escapes with Larry while she's hallucinating from the mushrooms, seeing everything in weird colors and looking like a scary monster. Gertrude and Larry travel for a long time on the pig until the pig gets annoyed by Gertrude's hallucinations and pushes them off. Then they get close to Ice Cream Island and pull out the map, arguing about where to search for the key. Suddenly, a huge shadow appears over them. We see Broth the Brutal, the hunter whom Queen Claudia hired to kill Gertrude. He tells her he's here to kill her. The next scene shows Gertrude sitting drunk at a bar, drinking so she could forget she didn't find the key. Next to her at the bar, Rasprot's head was chopped off. She killed him so easily that we didn't even see the fight happen. A teddy bear sees the scene and tells her, "Enough drinking," but Gertrude keeps drinking and talks to Larry about how she wishes she could just be normal for one day. Suddenly, her wish weirdly comes true, and she turns into a huge, ugly monster covered in bruises. Gertrude asks Larry, "What happened to me? I look like a freak." Larry says, "It's because of that wish beer you were drinking. Any wish you make gets granted," and he explains that she's always been living on Fairyland food, which is basically sugar, so it makes sense that if she grew up, she would turn into this ugly thing. Meanwhile, Queen Claudia is upset because Gertrude is still alive, so she goes down to the dungeon. There, she starts communicating with the witch Horabella. Horabella lives in a swamp full of monsters. She's a crazy witch with no mercy. She answers the call in her house. Claudia asks her to kill Gertrude in exchange for a lot of money. Horabella agrees and moves toward the Fawn Valley. The citizens there are half human, half goat. The witch manages to trick one of them into eating a poisoned apple, turning him into a mindless zombie creature who starts roaming around. The next day, Gerto and Larry continue their journey, killing a bunch of giant laughing monsters because they think the key is inside their stomachs, but it isn't. Gerto suggests they take a break and head to a nearby town by the name of Valley of the Fawns. When they get there, they find some Goatman zombies. Gerto manages to kill a few and leaves the village feeling happy about killing something, but then she realizes Larry is surrounded by a huge, overwhelming number of Goatman zombies. If she had to kill them all, it would take forever. Gerto expressed her frustration, saying there was no chance with those numbers. Even though the number of zombies made it seem impossible to take them all out, Gertrude managed to kill every single one. She realized these zombies were actually dead people who could come back to life. So, she asked Larry for a giant dragon. With that dragon, they burned all the bodies, and once they were done, they continued their journey. Meanwhile, in Queen Claudia's palace, there's a meeting between her and the witch Orpula. Claudia scolds her for failing to kill Gertrude. The queen goes to a massive talking tree to meet the Senate for an urgent meeting. The tree talks to her and tells her that the senators live inside it. It says she needs to say the old password to get inside. She gets upset because she's a Fairyland queen and should be known on her own, with no password needed. But the tree insists, saying the password is pizza, and lets her in through its mouth. Inside, she reaches the Senate chamber. When she stands before them, they discuss the long-standing problem with the little girl, who's been messing up the lands and kingdoms for a long time. The senators say there's not much they can do because Gertrude will stay until she finds the key, and they can't stop it. Queen Claudia knows the rule but says she thinks whoever wrote the rules probably expected someone this hopeless to come along, so they definitely wrote an escape clause. Then she lays out her plan and suggests they invite a new child to Fairyland. If the new kid reaches the first key, Gertrude will change from a guest into a citizen, so the queen can finally get rid of her. The council agrees to the plan, and at that moment, Claudia summons a new child from the world. Back in Fairyland, we return to Gertrude, who has just finished torturing a monster and stealing the horn from its head. As she runs, she crosses a wooden bridge that breaks in half, causing her to fall into a valley, hitting her head and losing consciousness completely. She remains unconscious for many long months, with Leary forced to stay by her side, watching over her. He ends up staying for such a long time that he builds himself a little wooden house. After that, he gets married and has kids, all the while Gertrude is still asleep. However, she even starts to grow a beard for some strange reason. Eventually, Larry's wife and the children leave him because of his alcohol issues, and in his madness, he burns down the house. Finally, Gertrude wakes up to the sound of singing. When she opens her eyes, she sees a new girl named Happy has arrived. She introduces herself and her guide, Miss Lady. Saying she's come from Wisconsin and is a guest in Fairyland to find the key and go back to the human world, Gertrude asks her, "You must have stayed here a long time to get this far, right?" Happy smiles and says, "Yeah, I really feel like it's been a long time. I never imagined it would take almost a whole day since I arrived, Gertrude. When Gertrude hears this, she starts boiling with anger. Just one day, and Gertrude tries to kill Happy to her face, but Happy shoots rainbow blasts, hitting Gertrude and flinging her across the forest. She keeps going, smiling, and continuing her journey as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, Larry goes straight to Gertrude after what Happy did to her, but she's physically crippled and says to Larry, "That girl with the powdered sugar thinks she's gonna take my keys." Then Larry blows cigar smoke at her, and somehow the smoke heals her, and she goes back to normal. Gertrude asks Larry if he still has the thing they got from the guy who takes you to the mirror world. Larry pulls out the mirror, the gate that lets them travel to the mirror world. Meanwhile, Gertrude drags Queen Claudia out of her palace to complain and ask who that happy girl is. "So, what's going on here?" Gertrude and Claudia are yelling at each other, and Claudia's losing it. She snaps at Gertrude, saying the magic was supposed to burn and kill her, but nothing happened. Gertrude just laughs and says, "Your magic doesn't work on me." Larry reminds her of the rule Claudia claims to know well and starts to calm down a bit, but then warns Gertrude mysteriously about what's going to happen to her if Happy gets to the first key and then leaves, laughing. Larry's flipping through the rulebook and realizes there's a danger that Gertrude could become a citizen if Happy reaches that first key. That would put our protagonist in danger from the Queen, which makes her even more determined to find the key before Happy. Happy asks Larry what she needs to do to win, and Larry just says she has to do something impossible, like going to one of the kingdom's 7 villains and taking their power. Gertrude really likes the idea, and meanwhile, Happy is easily completing challenges and moving closer to the key on the other side. Her neighbor Gertrude goes on a special adventure to gather one of the 7 evil powers. She passes through the forest of trees ruled by death, killing everyone in her path. She goes through the fields of tears, filled with crying children, and next climbs the Snout Mountains. Finally, she reaches a terrifying castle perched on a skull-shaped rock. Gertrude kills the guard and enters the castle. She meets Darkest Dith, one of the 7 villains, sitting on a throne made of skulls, welcoming her to his kingdom. Gertrude looks around and says the decor is super intense. She asks if he knows about Happy, who's trying to steal her key and lock her up here forever. Darkest says, yeah, he knows everything, so Gertrude doesn't waste time and asks him for his evil power to scare that girl. And Darkest agrees, but only on one condition: she has to get through his prison cell and prove she's worthy. So, she is pushed and thrown into the cell. There, she sees a tiny creature, but then she finds out it's just the tongue of a giant, terrifying monster standing right over her. We go back to Happy, who's traveling through time realms and jelly seas, collecting the sacred treasures of the trolls. She also finds the lost love of Orc the Drunk. In the end, she reaches the key and touches it, and suddenly she's transported to the main city next to the door. The residents of Fairyland gather around to say goodbye to her. Claudia hugs her and asks her to open the door, but Happy insists on keeping a secret while saying goodbye to Miss Lady. Claudia tries to hurry her up, and suddenly a voice sounds. There's a huge beast shaking the place, Gertrude, rising from the ground, riding a dragon that's killing the sun and dragging its guts over everyone. The Queen asks how she got that power. Gertrude tells her she went to the darkest depths and asked him to give her his power. Happy tries to hit her with a rainbow, but this time Gertrude is way stronger. She eats the attacks, tears open the ground with her strength, which swallows Happy, and drags her far away to suffer like she did. Finally, she manages to reach the key, grabs it, and opens it. The door opens, and she's crying tears of joy because she can finally go home. Claudia is standing next to her, mocking her, saying she wished this goodbye had come with death. Gertrude laughs, saying, "You're right," and unleashes all her power on Claudia, literally burning her completely. Meanwhile, Larry is screaming, "No, don't kill her," but Gerdo kills Claudia anyway. Despite Larry's warning, just as she's about to leave through the door suddenly shuts, and the key disappears. Gertrude looks confused, not knowing what's going on, and screams out, "Larry, what the fluff is going on here?" Larry's reading from the book that whoever kills the Queen becomes the new ruler of Fairyland. Gertrude actually becomes the Queen of Fairyland and gets locked up there forever. She sits on the throne and screams, "Flavin Fairyland," becoming the queen of the land that she has always hated. And that's the end of part 1 of the story. As always, don't forget to hit the like button. I'm just reminding you, like the video if you enjoyed it.